Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we're going to talk about ONE FC Mayssa Bastos versus Danielle Kelly. We're going to recap ADXC 5, headlined by Uriah Faber versus Bibiana Fernandez. We are also going to talk about BJJ Stars and all the wild matches on that, including the main event of Mica Galvão versus Davi Ramos. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Miranda.
How you doing, Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. We just had a nice little pre-show, went through all the stuff. We went into the preview section for next week, and we're like, what are we previewing? I was like, oh, yeah, right. Next week's show is the preview show for ADCC, like the big one, because after that show, the whole team flies out to Vegas to watch ADCC live and the Craig Jones Invitational. So, like, that will be next week's show if you're tuning in for, like, the normal kind of flair this week, and then next week goes into full-scale ADCC preview mode. We have to pack everything, go on location in Vegas, do the in-person shows and all that fun. So get ready for that next week. But this week we have a normal show.
Yep.
So in the news section of the show this week, we have some announcements for ADCC. We have a bunch of, as per usual, because last week we talked about Mason Fowler being out of the Craig Jones Invitational at the above 80 kilogram division, we assume he's injured. That's the only reason.
It's his back. It's a back injury.
It's a back injury. Okay.
He
so we do know now.
said it online. He made a post about it either today or yesterday.
Okay.
Saying it was a back injury, that he's still doing all of his like appearances and camps and all that kind of stuff, but that it's
he's doing all the stuff that makes him money outside of competing.
Exactly.
But he's not going to be competing. Which again, back as a guy with a spine surgery. Back injuries are no joke, and please take care of your back, folks. So he is out. As a result, we had CJI pull another person from ADCC.
Well, initially they were trying to get what's his name? Australian. Smaller Australian.
Lachlan?
Yeah.
Oh, they were trying to get
that's who initially they were trying to steal.
And Lachlan was like, I have 2 kids and I'm retired and I'm not doing plus 80.
Yeah.
So they got Lucas Kanard, who is the 88 kilogram Asian and Oceanic Trials winner for ADCC. He now moves from ADCC to the Craig Jones Invitational. And an interesting replacement we just got like recently was replacing him in ADCC is Achilles Rocha, Wagner Rocha's son.
Yes.
So now we have Wagner Rocha, we have Achilles Rocha, and Jasmine Rocha all in the same tournament. I think this would be the first time we've ever had, I think it'd be the first time we've ever had father-daughter. I think it'll also be the first time we've ever had father-son. We almost did with Cabrina and Kennedy.
Yeah, but Kennedy replaced Cabrina.
Because Cabrina was the champion, and Cabrina was like, I'm done, put Kennedy in for my place. And then he got silver that year, and it was like, okay, that was a good replacement.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be cool. Like, I don't know how many more years Wagner has. I think, he's 40, 41, 43, something like that.
That is about my age. Just so we
But at
we
the
know
ADCC level, like, you still compete all the time.
We're super old people at this age.
We're getting a little old, yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's like LeBron and like those folks like trying to play with their kids in the NBA. It's kind of the same thing. It's kind of neat to watch his prodigy and his children also compete with him at ADCC. It's pretty neat to me.
Yeah.
So,
no, it is. It's a pretty neat thing, and it doesn't happen very often.
No.
I mean, we get the husband-wife pair.
Yeah, that's always really
cool.
But
that's the only thing that we've got.
I think this will be the first time that we've had like a multi-generational ADCC where it's like someone's kid.
I think so too.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't think about that until we just kind of, we looked at the replacement for ADCC. Achilles has looked pretty good at trials. He's had some rough goes at it the last couple of years, but he's consistently been there in the mix. Jasmine won trials. Wagner's won trials, I think 3 or 4 different times. Wagner has, I think him and DeBlas and Tonin have the most trials wins. I think they're all at 3 or 4 or something like that. Like all of them have a bunch of trials wins. So it is cool to see all of them together.
But if they have 3 to 4, doesn't Ardilla?
Oh, he might have beat him this year. Paul Ardilla might have more.
Because he has like a ton.
I think he has 4 as well. I think he has 4 trials
wins
as well.
He wins all the time.
I remember that stat from 2019 is when I remember that stat from. So, yeah, he might have more now. But
because I feel like he wins every year.
He does win almost every year.
Yeah.
Since I think like 2017
for a long time.
Or 2019, at least 2019, if not 2017.
Yeah.
So that is ADCC and CJI news for the week. We are going to be in Vegas, not this week, but the following week. Yeah, that's right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Not next weekend, but the weekend after.
Yeah, we'll be in Vegas, so we'll do a preview show, and then we will be in Vegas, and it will be fun. If you were in Vegas and you want to say hi to us, we look like this. Say hi. Always love to talk to people that listen to the show. It's always like wild every couple years to get in person at ADCC.
Yeah,
we
always run into people.
Yeah, it's always cool to run into folks where it's like, oh yeah, like guys you've talked to online for years, and then you're like, oh, this is your face in person at an event. Like that's kind of wild. So take a picture. We always love it. It's a ton of fun. That's all I got for news. We are coming up and ramping up to ADCC World Championships and CJI. Full disclosure, no idea how we're going to cover both of those in Vegas, but we'll find a way to do it.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Hopefully, there isn't a lot of overlap.
You absolutely know that there will be a ton of overlap.
I know, and then you have to pick which one you want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
So,
hopefully, they said the time. Josh and I talked last week. They said the times apparently for CJI they're going to try to run them so they don't overlap, which I appreciate as a spectator with tickets to both.
Also, there's coaches that have students at both.
Oh yeah, like Dima and like Andre and like
Yeah, you have coaches that need to go back and forth.
Oh, I didn't even think about that aspect where it's like we have this really, really tiny spurt. Oh, in other news, I forgot to talk about it. We finally have camps that have built the pit wall.
Yeah, and
so the Tackets, B Team has one.
I'm wondering if they all had them and they were just kind of like hiding them, you know? Because like no one wanted to really.
Neither would surprise me, honestly. Yeah. You're not going to show your hand like, hey, I've been working with the pit wall for 2 months.
But they've been showing these pit walls and they're pretty crazy.
Yeah, but it's cool. It is cool. We talked about, we were surprised initially when everyone got announced for it that they hadn't immediately built them. So it is cool to see at least Tackett and B Team. And I think there was one other gym that had them built.
It was Hugo. It was Victor Hugo.
Yeah, that's what it was. Victor Hugo.
It was, what is that gym?
Six Blades.
Yeah. They had built one.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, that's exactly what you need to have for something like that. Because
for $1 million on the line, spend the $500 and build the.
I think it was Joseph Chen who did a video of himself, and he was trying to do like something off the cage wall, and he just like face planted.
Oh, that's funny.
And he was like, "Oh, this is what happens."
So that would be it'll be fun. We're going to Vegas. Miranda, where do you want to start this week? We got 3 events to cover. We got One FC, we got ADXC, and we have BJJ Stars Viking Edition.
Do the Viking Edition.
You want to start with that?
Yeah, why not?
All right, let's start. Okay, that was fun.
We enjoyed the Viking Edition.
I enjoyed the Viking Edition. I like BJJ Stars. They put on fun events. I do like the English commentary. Although the broadcast cuts out a bunch of the fun stuff the BJJ Stars does.
Yeah.
Joe Gilpin and a bunch of the other guy. Really, really great commentary. Had a lot of great insight.
They
do a good job.
I would like it to be not as obvious that they're not there.
Hey man, fly them down.
Yeah,
fly those homies down
because
and put them on a second mic table.
They put them in a different room.
Well, they're in like the flow studio.
Yeah,
and you can tell they're in the flow studio and like they're cutting between the broadcasts. I would love hey man, whatever it costs to fly those guys down, send them to Brazil for the week. Have them do commentary there so we can get as the English broadcast because those guys do a great job. I love hearing them and the insight that they have is great, but I want to see the rest of the stuff. So other than that, I
want to see the craziness because I know between matches they do all kinds of crazy shit and we don't get to see it.
And also the English broadcast cut off, what match was it?
It was the ladies match.
The Felipe Silva and Ingrid Alves match. They cut that one off. So, but again, commentary was great for that. I love that it was kind of put together well. I just would love to see him, integrate it a little better. Let's talk about the main event for this one. Mica Galvão versus Davi Ramos. I think this went sort of how we all expected.
Yeah.
Like Mica Galvão beat Davi Ramos. I think we kind of expected him to be able to submit Davi. And then Davi showed that yeah, man, I'm really, really good. Even though I'm a little older, I am still an absolute monster.
I don't think I thought that he was going to sub Davi. I thought that he would control Davi but not submit him.
I thought he would. How long was this 10-minute match? I thought he was going to submit him. And there was a bunch of times in this match where he almost did, but Davi Ramos just went, nope, I'm just going to pull out of this.
I'm just going to throw you across the mats now.
I did like that we had Mica and Davi throwing flying triangles and arm bars.
Yeah,
there was just something kind of poetic about that of if you don't know, Davi Ramos back in 2013, I think, hit a flying armbar over Lucas Lepre at ADCC, and it was a huge deal. And Davi Ramos has historically hit a lot of flying armbars. He was one of the progenitors of big high-level BJJ tournaments, throwing those. And Mica Galvão throws it a little bit differently, but it is kind of nice to see kind of 2 generations of the flying armbar guys come together. and at a nice crossroad, because I think in a couple of years this match will be less competitive as Davi ages up and Mica ages into his prime.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool kind of meeting of the generations match. That being said, very clearly Mica's match pretty much bell to bell.
Yeah.
With not a lot of opposition from Ramos. Mica has a beautiful pass into mount on Davi. He looks for the arm triangle. He does a great job of controlling Davi's arm. He does this beautiful step over into a triangle. One thing I thought was interesting, though, is Davi Ramos has enough movement from the bottom here to prevent Mica from being able to lock up the triangle all the way across the back. You see Mica kind of go, and weirdly enough, usually Mica, when he's locking something up, he tends to always be in control of like the angle that he's making.
Yeah.
Davi Ramos, I don't know, it seemed like Mica almost got a little ahead of himself here in a way that we usually don't see him. And I thought it was really interesting because when he spins to his back to lock the triangle up, you see him go to the ankle to ankle triangle as opposed to going all the way over to his shin and foot. And it was just it's not an error, but it is like a...
But I think Davi is also a very... he has a lot of power and he's a lot of strength. And I think...
You saw him just yank his body
I think
out of the triangle.
I think like he starts throwing himself around and it's more like you realize that you need to do a lot to try to hold your position. So you might not immediately smack or slap your triangle on because you need to hold that position before you do that, you know? And it just might be one of those things where you're like, this guy has so much like power that I'm going to have to like slow it down and not do it so much. Because like if you watch the match, because it was a 10-minute match and points didn't come in until the 5-minute mark.
Oh yeah, for all the Nogi ones, points, it's kind of like ADCC.
It's ADCC points, So, but you see you see Mica, he hits a knee tap, he takes him to side control, he goes north-south, and you see him literally hold him until the 5-minute mark and then start doing things.
One of the things I thought was really interesting, and the commentary actually reminded me of this, is they talked about Mica Galvão's takedown game. And when he takes guys down, and typically when he's controlling, he is immediately getting past the guard. He's not typically taking down into the guard and hanging out there for a long period of time on most people. And I think Joe Gilpin on commentary like brought that up, and I was thinking back through a bunch of old Mica Galvão matches, and I was like, oh yeah, he does do that. And interesting enough, he elected not to go to CJI. And I thought about that. I was like, okay, tactically, why would he have chosen to go to ADCC versus, going to CJI? There's more money.
He might be getting some money.
He might be getting some money, some show money from ADCC is possible. And again, if that's what it takes to get him there, I'm happy to see that. But also his game plays really well for that rule set. If you're consistently like Mica Galvão, and his girlfriend is in the Olympic finals right now?
Yeah, she's in the finals.
For wrestling?
Yeah, finals are tomorrow. So by the time the show hits, she might already win. But
what's her name?
Amit Amor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
U.S. wrestler, phenomenal wrestler, literally at the Olympics right now at the highest level.
She beat one of the, so she had to go down a weight class because I guess the weight class that she normally competes at, either it wasn't available or it wasn't one of the Olympic weight classes because the weight classes change for different things. So she was actually cutting more weight than she normally does. And so she wasn't ranked when she went in. And then she went against one of like the ranked people first round and like beat the living shit out of her.
Yeah. So it may kind of go, oh, Mica Galvão, his ability to take people down very effectively past the guard. In ADCC, their scoring is if you take down into closed guard or into half guard, it's 2 points. If you take down a clean takedown, you either take down to mount or side control, it's more points. It's 4 points.
Yeah.
And Mica Galvão consistently being able to do that, consistently puts himself in a better scoring opportunity. And I just thought it was interesting. It also depends, in the whole situation.
If it also really depends on what kind of like takedown you're doing. And like both him and we're going to talk about the co-main event with Baby Shark. Both of them were doing kind of like a double to a knee pick where you just throw their legs to the side. And that way you don't even have to worry about passing guard because you're already passed by the time you land.
Yeah. You kind of fix the problem ahead of it. It was an interesting piece of commentary that made me kind of think about Mica's game on a larger scale for the tournaments that he's going to do in ADCC. And I went, oh yeah, that is a really good technical development to just avoid the guard because in ADCC it scores more, and in something like this you can hold in north-south until you have points.
Yeah.
And then he kind of waited a while in side control in north-south.
Yeah. And
then they said on commentary, there's points now, and then he immediately passed. Goes to a beautiful knee on belly ride and then controls Davi does a great job of escaping. And I was honestly really impressed with watching Davi escape. He is at the same step of escaping as Mica is transitioning, and you just watch him escape perfectly. It doesn't look like a guy barely pulling it. They slow-mo something. You're like, oh, Davi is timing Mica's transition perfectly so that when he's going to swing his hips, he's got his head down. You can watch him. They do a slow-mo of Davi Ramos escaping the transition through the triangle and the armbar, and you can watch him how he has his head tilted down, and like how he's pulling his body. You're like, wow, that's a really, really high-level escape, and the timing on it is just beautiful. And it's like, it's not often we get to see like a slow-mo, like, oh yeah, this is how he's escaping right here, and you can see his head is positioned down so that this transition happens. He pulls his head out of the hole. Yeah. It was just a neat, like, the camera work and the commentary worked really well in this match, and it was nice to see both Mica Galvão's game and then also like
Davi Ramos.
Beautiful defense from Davi Ramos, because Mica is putting most of the people away in most of these spots, either with the armbar or with the triangle. Or getting the back. And Davi did a great job of not giving up the back, which I was also really impressed about. But, you know, he's got that veteran experience, but usually even then, it doesn't matter. Mica wins out on points, but in a pretty dominant fashion there. Yeah. So he gets 2 for the knee on belly, and he gets 2 for the mount. Yep. So, anything else on that match? Nope. I'm amped to see Mica at the ADCC. I am curious if he's going to wear his belt at ADCC. Because they didn't last time. Because him and Baby Shark...
but this event was in Brazil, so maybe they wore their belts because they were in Brazil.
But they do it who's number 1 too.
Yeah, but they did it at the Brazilian trials, but they didn't do it. Well, they only did Brazilian.
They didn't do it last ADCC. I don't think they would wear it and they would take it off beforehand. But now they're like doing it more consistently. It's an interesting little.
Can you
wrinkle.
use it against them if you're wearing it?
You can't grab it in ADCC. You can't grab anything. Oh, because some people wear gis at trials. That happens like once or twice every couple of years.
Well, it's normally the same person.
Yeah, and you can't grab. So, but in the rules meaning like they can wear it, but you can't grab. So in other tournaments, typically, if you wear like gi pants, you can grab the gi pants. Yeah. And MMA, you can grab your own shorts. In ADCC, offensively and defensively, you can't grab any clothing. Oh, okay. Which is consistent at least. So. It's fun. Let's move on to the co-main event. Diogo Reis versus... Diogo. I still can't get his name right. He's the world champion. He's been the world champion for years.
But it gets confusing. It gets confusing because there's Diego.
We have Diego Pato, also in his division, and Diogo Reis. Yeah.
We have Diogo versus Diego.
Uh-huh. Which I'm amped for again. Like, I'm down to see that match again. Who's number 1? Bring him back. Versus Felipe Machado. So, Diogo Reis versus Felipe Machado. Let's call him Baby Shark.
Reis.
What'd I say?
Race.
I said the R, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay. Baby Shark.
Baby Shark.
Versus Felipe Machado. So the biggest takeaway I have here is less like a technical takeaway between these two guys. It's more of a Felipe Machado is very fast. Yes. Baby Shark is faster. And the ability of him to snap Felipe Machado down, to knee pick, exactly like you said in the Mica Galvão match, both of them do it, to like knee pick and takedown and drag and arm drag. And even the way you watch, and there's a takedown sequence here that happens, is what ends up scoring Baby Shark his points. The way that he's able to break Felipe Machado's posts from up, he will like go inside the elbow and like almost like a Bruce Lee movie. You'll see him like fence inside, come up, and then drive his arm up while he spins under. He is just so much quicker in front of everyone, and I think we've always kind of known he's really quick. But this match, because we know Felipe Machado is also specifically quick for the weight class. Yeah. To watch like the speed difference of like Felipe Machado goes in, Baby Shark sprawls on something, and like Felipe Machado has a really quick sprawl, and Baby Shark can capitalize on it and get around or grab his neck. It's just wild to watch him consistently, even when he is defending something that Felipe Machado is throwing. He's able to be so quick in front of it that he's able to stuff something or like get in front of a takedown or get in front of an arm drag, get in front of a body push.
Well, and not even that too, but then he attacks out of that. Yeah, I was surprised like how fast he just strings his attacks, because he goes this takedown to that takedown to this takedown. Now I'm gonna press your.
Yeah, he'll chain them all together. You know? One thing I noticed that's also really interesting with like specifically with how Diogo does it is a lot of other guys, when they do this, you see them tend to they are forced to make too much space, especially in the lower weight classes that like Diogo and Felipe compete in. Like they're forced to make too much space. They tend to struggle to get around guys' guard because the legs come in front. Guys are so flexible. We saw this in the match with Shea and the match here with Felipe Machado. Like, Baby Shark is so quick. He's just in front of you, and he's not trying to pass you usually from a static guard. He's getting you up, he's getting you moving, he's getting you regarding, and then he's passing off of the regard. He's never really getting you in like an attritive, forward-facing smash pass or low pass. He's always just beating you with forcing you to cut an angle, and then he outcuts you and gets around you.
Yeah.
It's just wild to watch him do it with like such a level of consistency that we really don't see from a lot of athletes. It is not a common skill set that we see, especially when, even with weight class, like guys will get into a scramble and then they will be unable to out scramble out of the position. But Diogo can just take ground consistently in almost every scramble. So the takedown is what gets it. The knee pick, and then he's able to hold Machado out. Machado kind of like techs out and tries to roll through. Diogo goes for his back, and they kind of pushed off the mat, and Diogo is sort of forced in a seated position. Yeah. Machado is sort of forced into a seated position, and they give him the points because it's been more than 3 seconds of him established as the bottom player. I think it was a very reasonable kind of decision there, but it was very close. That was the only scoring piece of the match, but Diogo has, I think, 1 or 2 different snap down guillotine attempts, and then a really good like transition into a Darce attempt earlier in the match. Yeah. And he was kind of all over Felipe Machado. Machado was
and
in
at the very end, so Machado shoots at the very end, and Diogo grabs his head for like a guillotine for the last like couple seconds. And that was really a smart idea, because if not, Machado would have got 2 points for the takedown. And so by grabbing his head, he would have had to clear that before. Yeah. So even if it's a shit, guillotine, that's not going to work. You still have to clear it to be able to, get out. And so that kind of fix the problem that almost happened at the very end of the match.
You saw him, like, it was weird. I watched that whole sequence because Machado shoots on a single leg, and you see Diogo kind of like half sprawl down, but he also like just feeds the single leg enough to force Machado to kind of have to drive and run the single. Yeah. And then like he doesn't immediately go for the guillotine because Machado is good enough where he can probably in a couple seconds can pull his head out. Yeah. He stands up and he waits with his leg kind of cross-ridden across Machado's body to force Machado to like have to kind of deal with this change of the single leg standing, and then takes him down. It was like, oh, he bought himself 10 extra seconds there by standing longer and not just going for the head, because Machado anticipated him going for the head like he had earlier. And it was just a wild little bit of gamesmanship late in the match where it was like, oh, you need about 30 seconds of time or 20-something seconds of time. Yeah. Give him the leg for a minute. Don't just sprawl. Then when you do sprawl, grab the head, and that will have given you enough time that even if he pulls your head out, you're not going to have enough time to stabilize to score points. It was just like mind-blowing to watch him do that. I was like, that's what he's doing. Yeah. So it was a fun match. Baby Shark takes it, but it was still like really impressive. Is Felipe Machado in ADCC?
No, he's not.
Man, I wish he was in ADCC.
I think he's too small.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
he did trials.
They said that he could make 35.
Yeah, I think he can.
And that he was normally 45 was a little big for him.
Yeah. Again, it was a fun match.
Not saying that means anything, but
at ADCC it kind of does. When you have like guys like Josh Cisneros and Ethan Cronston and like all the guys that like DeAndre, all the guys that will cut like their leg off to get down to under 66 kilos, it kind of makes sense. Also, 66 kilos didn't have any changes from CJI.
True.
Like all of the 66 kilo division for ADCC is still like
it looks like
strong as it's ever been.
He did do South American trials.
Yeah, he's done trials. Because we saw him at AIGA.
Yeah.
And then we saw him at South American trials, and he really impressed me at both events. So.
Yeah. He also he did the New Breed Orlando. Yeah, 140.
Why?
At lightweight, he's with your people.
Hey, get him.
If you would have done,
I would have got submitted by Felipe Machado. That'd be fun. That'd be kind of neat, actually. Let's move on. Let's talk about Fellipe Andrew versus Anderson Munis. So Josh and I previewed this last week. We got the wrong Munis brother. Yeah. I was like, it's gonna be close. He's probably gonna beat him. Like Eric Munis has beat Fellipe Andrew a bunch. Yeah. Anderson Munis has not.
Yeah,
he has been submitted by Fellipe Andrew 3 times and now 4 times.
No, 4 times.
4 times now. Going into the match 3 times.
No, 4 times before the match. That's how the announcers said.
Oh, it was 4? I thought it was 3.
No, they said
was the 4th.
No, they said 4.
That's crazy.
Like 4 before.
Anderson Munis looked good early in the match. He gets his 2 points early, and then it was okay, maybe he's going to turn it around.
Yeah.
And then Fellipe Andrew, in kind of true Fellipe Andrew style, just decides that he's not.
Yeah, he's like, nah.
He hits what commentary calls the Margali sweep.
It is a Margali sweep. It's a lasso. It's a lasso with the leg like right down the middle.
It's a single leg butterfly sweep, but it's a lasso variation with the leg inside. Margali sweep.
It's a Margali
now
sweep.
Nowadays, everyone calls it the Margali sweep because
I love the Margali sweep. When I actually put a gi on, I like it, but I never put a gi on, so it tells you a lot.
I'm trying to think if I ever use it.
I taught it in class once because I got really
funny.
amused by it, so I taught it.
My coach is really, really good at this sweep and this variation of the sweep, and it's one of those things where I defend it a lot, but I don't throw it a ton. And but it was cool. He hits him, and then that is sort of the beginning of the end. Once Fellipe Andrew is able to turn Anderson Munis over, he just sort of gets his motor running, gets on top. He passes. He immediately, not immediately, but pretty quickly passes him out with like a leg weave, and then Anderson Munis is just.
But he like ties him up in his gi first.
Oh yeah, there's that.
Because he
sequence.
does. He like
that was a really neat.
He
sequence.
like grabs the gi behind the lapel and like
you take under the armpit and you grab it cross side around the head, and so it flattens out their opposite side shoulder, and so you can only turn belly down.
Yeah, you can't really sit up.
Or you can work really hard to get flat back, so you either get your back taken, or you give up a sweep to mount. Which is what he gives up here. He gives up a sweep to mount, and then it was really just Fellipe Andrew sort of just climbing to mount, and then working the arm up, and then getting the arm across, and Anderson Munis tried to get the arm back across, but never really could. And it didn't seem like it. He honestly seemed a little not complacent, but he just like he sort of like looked like he was just sort of trying to push him out and off, as opposed to like kind of freaking out and trying to buck him off.
Yeah, there
was less hip movement than I would have expected from Anderson Munis in this position. And Fellipe Andrew has we know people have been in it, has a suffocating mount and top playing game, which maybe prevents Anderson Munis from being able to get his hips up at all. But Fellipe Andrew gets the arm across and then just slides across. He does the wind striper of the leg. He gets to the side and then finishes the arm triangle, the Katagatame on the top. There's not really a lot more other than like he really sort of has Anderson Munis's number, and Eric Munis really has Fellipe Andrew's number. So it's like a weird, your older brother can beat him, but your younger brother can't. I don't really have much more on that.
No, it's, I don't know. I don't know what to say more about that.
Yeah, I got nothing else.
No.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Andy Murasaki versus Pedro Maia. This was a fun match. They talked about Andy Murasaki's like giant weight shifts.
Yeah.
He looks big for 168.
Yeah.
And which makes sense because apparently 168 is a pretty decent cut for him to get down to. But he looked like clearly the stronger guy.
Oh yeah.
And it was really mostly Andy from after a little bit of opposition at the beginning from Pedro Maia. It was really Andy Murasaki.
It was.
And the sequence that wins it for Andy Murasaki is just a really, really nice modified single leg X, like X guard variation where he takes Pedro Maia over the top. Pedro Maia tries to kind of tech out of it, but Andy Murasaki both has his far side hand and his same side lapel, or same side arm and same side pant grip.
Yeah.
And Pedro Maia does everything he can to get out of this essentially X guard tech up sweep. And at one point, like, does the worm in midair, but Andy Murasaki does
the worm in midair.
That is exactly what he does. Like, he literally flops his whole body, which normally in this position will get you so that you're posted on your hand out and can start running manning with your other leg.
Yeah.
But because Andy Murasaki has the opposite side, or that same side hand, when Pedro Maia goes to do it, he can't get his hand back down, and then Murasaki can force him to turtle, and then force him down all the way through the sweep. And it was just a beautiful sequence because you watched Murasaki from the grips that he had as the guard player all the way up through like the two transitions from to the side and to the the turtle and back to the butt. You watched him keep the same exact grips, didn't need to grip switch, didn't need to change anything through everything, and then just gets up and beats him.
Yep.
That was like the biggest sequence of the match, was just that really cool sweep from Arasaki with those same grips. I don't really have a whole lot more on it.
No.
It was fun. It was a fun little sequence. Let's talk about, I think this might be one of the last matches I want to talk about for BJJ Stars, Izaki. It ends in a guillotine.
Yes.
So, which is like my favorite thing.
Well, and this is the match that Alexandre
Jesus?
Jesus.
Is it? I think it's Jesus.
Is it Jesus or Jesus?
Brazil, half times it's Jesus, half times it's Jesus.
So he was a late replacement for Barbosa.
Did we talk about this in news or no?
We did not, because
Okay.
Lucas is still in he's still in CGI.
Yeah.
They said it was an injury, but then they didn't say it was an injury, but then they didn't say what it was. They just said that he was out.
Yeah,
but they did the same thing with Izaki. They're like, he's not doing ADCC, but they didn't say why. They just said he's just not doing it, which was the other one. I was like, huh.
Maybe super fights or something, or who?
I don't know.
Not sure, but we don't know right now if Hulk is out of CJI.
We don't think he is, because that was a while ago, and I think that was before Mason Fowler got pulled out.
Yeah, we just don't we don't know. He's still listed as in,
and maybe he just didn't want to go to Brazil.
You know what I mean? You're 2 weeks out. Like, it's a nice compete a lot.
Maybe he just decided like he was too tired and just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, you're in the middle of a hard camp for CGI. There's $1 million on the line. It's like maybe like, yeah, man, I don't want to take a super fight with Izaki Bahens.
Yeah.
Right before ADCC.
Yeah. Right
before CJI.
I don't know. They never said one way or another. I didn't see Lucas say anything.
I hope Hulk is still in, but if he is out, he did pull out of this match. It wouldn't surprise me. Again, no dropouts of any tournament surprise me.
Yeah.
We do a really, really hard sport, and people get injured very frequently competing in these world level camps. Like, it is very frequent at the world championship level that we have guys where it's like, oh, what happened? Oh, he couldn't do worlds that year because he was injured. Like, that is a pretty frequent thing.
It could also be something really stupid, like they get cut, like a face cut.
Oh yeah,
you know?
I'm trying to make it heal.
What I mean,
yeah.
you can't. And
go guys usually won't post about that because they're just trying to get clear and they're trying to just heal it up and like tape it.
Yeah.
So you guys don't know that they're not training while they're trying to heal this cut up.
Yeah, or something like that. There's things that happen.
This was Izaki Bahens in standard Izaki Bahens form, snapdowns and guillotines, and snapdowns and guillotines, and really the arm and guillotine, which is what he's really known for, and that's what he hits here. He 2 different times he snaps Alexandre down, looks for it. The first time Alexandre does a really good job of like getting out of it and is able to like essentially scramble through the headlock and able to pass. And then the second time Izaki goes, cool, I've now seen what you do to escape this front headlock and this snap down. I'm going to get my outside leg in front of the leg that you are going to jump around and try to pass the guard with this guillotine. And then Alexandre does this big jump over. Izaki is ahead of it, goes to his back, does the roll, then traps the other leg with his leg inside, and then sits to the side for the arm and guillotine. And that is it. It was a really, really great example of Izaki just going, cool, this is the reaction I'm going to get here from this competitor, and this is how to make the adjustment the second time I throw it.
Yep.
It's like it's a textbook game plan, like not game planning, like in-match adjustment. And it's something we've seen from Izaki a bunch. I feel like we've had this exact same conversation where it's like, the first time it didn't work, and the second time Izaki made this defense, and we see him get his leg. A lot of times when Izaki does this initially, he will sort of let the guy jump around and sort of see what they do, and then the second time he throws it, he tends to lock the legs in a lot more. I'm not sure if it's, I just thought about this now. I'm not sure if it's like a tactical thing where he sort of like doesn't show his full hand. Yeah, he kind of baits a reaction, but I feel like most Izaki Bahens matches that he ends with the arm and guillotine, he will have done it earlier in the match, and it won't have been like super, super tight. And then later in the match, it's like, wow, that is like the rest of the guillotine, essentially. So it
could just be him trying to figure things out.
Yeah, like a feeling out process for the timing. But it was, again, it's beautiful here. And Alexandre does exactly what you're supposed to do here. Like, he does this enormous jump around to try to get to the side. Because when someone jumps like a standing guillotine on you, or does a snap down guillotine, if you are fast with it, you either do one of like 2 things. You either sprawl down all the way, but with Izaki, he's going to get underneath you and he's going to take your head off your body. Or what you do is you kind of go with it and you try to jump around their guard and jump around their legs.
Yeah.
And with how Izaki throws it, that's the better option because he is underneath you already most of the time, a lot of times. So the defensive reaction is really good here, and it's cool to see Izaki like work through that, both using his outside leg to drop and stop the hop over, and also using the inside leg to posture Alexander's hips up so that he can't do the jump again because his hips are already loaded up. So it was neat. I enjoyed it. Miranda, what other matches here do you want to talk about? This you had a piece in our pre-show you talked about here for this one.
Oh, yeah. So Fabio Coloi went against Servio Tullio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tullio.
Yeah. A man whose name I always get jittery with.
So
7 years in a row.
Servio lat drops Fabio off the mats. Like Fabio is pushing Servio like backwards towards the end of the corner of the mats, and Servio.
Wait, I had that wrong in my head.
Fabio's pushing in, and Sergio like grabs his over-unders and then drops him off the stage into the people. Like, and it's not even like I'm trying, like I accidentally did this. No, this was like I'm going to lap drop you into people off the stage.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
You could see that was one of those, like, that was the goal.
And I mean, so it kind of makes sense that he then got his head cut open, later in the match. It looked like a scrappy ass match.
It did look, honestly, the head cut open was interesting because I watched the replay of the hat on the broadcast, and Fabio has, like, they have the interlocking grip in the hands that I don't love because really it's a stalling grip. You can't do a whole lot from it, but they are kind of posted shoulder to shoulder on the opposite side, and then Fabio's kind of walking backwards, and then he snaps Servio's hand down, and Servio kind of like trips almost, and just boom, smashes his face into Fabio's head, and like gets this big cut, and it was like, oh, that was weird because usually it's the other guy that gets cut there. And it was odd to see the guy like on the receiving end be the one to receive the cut. But again, with head cuts like that, they're so
you never know. You never know how it's gonna work.
Way. But it was just a funny like it was the timing that Fabio had to be able to hit that was wild because he kind of like does a forward snap from that hand at a pretty close range that most people can't do. It was a neat little like, oh, that's a neat little snap down that you did there with the hand to get him to kind of trip into you like that. So Fabio takes that on points. He was more aggressive for the majority of the match, and then he later in the match almost gets a takedown. That was like could have been an advantage almost, but it was definitely closer than anything that Servio had, even regardless of like the takedown off the mat. But it was scrappy. It was fun, mostly on the feet. Wasn't a lot of mat work, but it was sometimes you have matches that are standing on the feet that aren't fun. This is a fun one.
No, this was a fun one.
Yep. We have Gabriel Costa, Wellington Luis. It was a penalty match. You have points either way from penalties.
Yeah.
It
is what it is.
Yeah, that's that kind of match. We have Gabriel Galvão, who's a guy I think we're going to be talking about more because he just won brown belt at Worlds.
Yes.
So typically, we don't do a lot of the coverage of the belts that are not the black belts because we usually have enough black belt matches to talk about during a week that the shows get too long. So we don't get a chance to see a lot of those guys. He defeated Francisco Lo.
Yep, he did.
And Francisco Lo was not happy about that.
No, he was not.
But he's never happy when he loses, generally. But it was, I think, from the way that the commentary was talking about this, it seemed like that was an upset.
Yeah.
And also, given that Francisco Lo just got silver at Worlds.
Yeah.
That's that speaks to just the level that Gabriel Galvão is at.
And it was a 2-2. It was a 2-2 decision. Which makes, I mean, and then if you think about it, and if you think about what the weight of their 2 points, the sweep that Gabriel hit on Francisco was an actual sweep, and Francisco's sweep of Gabriel was kind of like Gabriel trying a jumping triangle and missing it, and Francisco knowing, oh, if I stand up right now, I get 2 points.
Right.
Which, I mean, you're taking advantage of the rules, which is what you're supposed to do.
One is a thing you did,
but
and one other thing is like, I know I can score here. It's like, you got 2 points versus like forcing. But they don't. Yeah. And I do appreciate that they don't score when you go to a decision there. They're not scored the same. It was like, you did that sweep, and the other guy like capitalized on the rules. Both are worth 2 points, But in the eyes of the judges, like
Yeah.
one is much harder to do and is rewarded more. So I thought it was reasonable. It was close. But again, we know how good Francisco Lowe is. I think we're going to see a lot more from Gabriel Galvão. Now that he has a new black belt, having won the Worlds, which gives him a free entry into the IBJJF Worlds at black belt for his first year, regardless of points. So definitely going to see him on the world stage this year, and I'm excited for guys named Galvão. Let's see. Maybe having the name Galvão is like one of the best bases for jiu-jitsu. Next match, I wish it was kind of got cut off on the broadcast. I didn't go back and find it on the Portuguese broadcast because it's one video right now and it's hard to find. Felipe da Silva defeated Ingrid Alves via decision. Very close match.
From what I saw in the minute that we had, and then they showed some clips of it, it seems like Thailita got a takedown early, and then it was her trying to pass Alves's guard. Yeah. And then it was a little chippy.
Mm-hmm. They both don't like each other. And commentary kind of explained the history a little bit, which I really appreciated. But yeah, it was a little less definitive than I think we would have liked.
Yeah.
But again, sometimes matches do get like that. Let's talk about let's start with this one.
Well, and Kleber Sousa defeated Felipe Nasib.
Smother tap. It looked like it's listed as smother tap, but I think it was.
I'm gonna break your nose with my chest.
It was like I'm gonna break your nose with my chest because smother tap typically, and it can be quick too, but it's usually like he fights for fights, and then like he can't breathe and he taps. When your nose is gonna break, usually it's like okay. Yeah. And it looked like with the way that Kleber Sousa had mount
and it
on
was
Felipe,
and it was fast.
Yeah. It was. There was not a lot of cook there. There was not a lot of like. Felipe trying to really he was trying to escape, but it was he gets the mount, he gets the crush down, hands under the head, both kind of locked underneath forearm to forearm, very quick tap. Yeah, wasn't a lot of opposition.
Either that
there.
or Cleaver smells horrible.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. So yeah, but it was in when we see guys tap super quick, it's usually because it's either like we see guys like Big Dan tap guys or like Luke tap guys. It's usually like, my face was going to break. Yeah. Like some part of my face or neck was going to break and I had to tap. Yeah. So that is BJJ Stars Vikings. Oh, it is ADCC rules.
It was ADCC rules for Nogi and IBJJF rules for Gi. I believe that was how it was done.
Because they had the advantages for Nogi.
They did, but they weren't actually awarding them.
That's why.
They weren't awarding them, but when they were doing IBJJF, they were doing penalties and advantages.
Yeah, that makes sense. But on their broad, that makes more sense now. Because I didn't pick that up. Because I was like, it seems like ADCC rules for everything else because the point scoring's the same for everything. Yeah. But they had on the scoreboard, the advantages were still there. Because for the Gi ones, they had them. Yeah. Okay, they just weren't using them. I wish they would like not have them there for the no-gi matches, but at least
the fact that they have it there, it might be so small that you can't see it, but at least it's there.
I feel like it's bigger than it used to be.
I feel like it is big.
Because it used to be just a little postage
it is
stamp
bigger
in the
than,
corner. I can at least read it now on my phone.
It is bigger than it used to be.
Which I appreciate. So they're doing something right. Let's move on to One FC. We only got one match to cover. Mayssa Bastos defeats Danielle Kelly in decision. Yeah. This is the first time that we have had a grappling.
I don't know why I wrote overtime decision because it was not. It was not overtime. Nope. It was just a decision.
Well, we got this.
Anyway.
This is the first time that we've had a grappling belt change hands in One FC. One Championship.
That is true.
Which is wild because I think right now we have 4 grappling champions. We have Cade, we have Ty, we have Mikey, and we have Danielle. Yeah. Danielle is the only female champion we have. There are 3 men's champions, and we're about to get a match between Cade and Mikey in September. So we saw Mayssa Bastos come in. This was a close decision, and I think there's definitely arguments for either woman here winning this title. Yeah. I think the reason I'm just going to talk about why I think they gave it to Mayssa here. Mayssa had 2 catches. She had 2 pretty good bites on Danielle's foot. Yeah. And she had turned through, and Herb called catch twice in the One Championship. I'm going to keep calling it One FC. It's not been One FC for some time. It's One Championship now.
I still call it One FC too.
I'm going to try to fix that, but it's One Championship. For the grappling matches in one, the catches, when the referee calls catch, is what is the largest criteria for decision. So if a match goes to decision, one person has 2 catches, one person has 1 catch. Usually, the person with 2 catches will be the person that wins that match. Mayssa has 2 catches. I think Herb was right. There were 2 legitimate catches on the heel that Danielle Kelly had to defend. to the one that was called for Danielle.
Yeah.
You picked up something really interesting on the pre-show with the way that Mayssa Bastos fights.
Yeah, so Mayssa plays guard, but she plays open guard, and she plays with like the bottoms of her feet kind of on people, right? Because she kind of uses them to push off or kind of move around. And as she's doing that, Danielle Kelly was trying to grab, and I always confuse Aokis and Estemas. I don't know why.
The top side
brain,
hold footlock.
Yeah, that one that you just kind of grab on people.
So the difference for the Aoki is going to be outside. Heel is to the rib cage on the inside.
Okay.
Estema is blade up. Like a top side toe hold is going to be an Estema. If the foot is facing the other way and the inside of the knee is facing up, then it's an Aoki.
Okay.
That's the difference. Aoki is much more like a heel hook. There's one way in IBJJF. If you go outside to inside in IBJJF, it is legal. If you go inside to outside with the hand grip, it is illegal. That is the difference between the three locks. Essentially, the legality between the two Aoki locks and then the Estema lock.
So she grabs her feet in that way. So she does that regularly, and that is generally a submission that people do to kind of elicit movement, I would say.
Yeah.
Very seldom do you actually get it. You can jump into it, but
and a lot of guys that'll get it will stand up with it.
Yeah.
Right? But Danielle tends to play a lot from her knees.
Yeah. So she kind of grabs her foot, but so Mayssa, and I'm sure the people at AOJ came up with this amazing idea. Every time she grabs one of Mayssa's feet, Mayssa just inverts and then starts trying to like crab ride or inverts and tries to get beneath her or into the legs. And that way it doesn't look like she's defending or trying to get out of anything. It looks like she's trying to attack something.
And I think, were any of them called catches?
No, none of them.
Hook, yeah, none of them were called catches. And in the one championship criteria, like that makes sense. So tactically, I think that was a really, really good thing to see from Bastos. It's like, oh yeah, we know Danielle Kelly's going to throw this. When she does, you just invert through and you start attacking either the back or your own leg. And then you're going to force Danielle Kelly to start defending something. And they're not going to see that motion that you just made as a defensive motion. They're going to see it as like, oh yeah, then she touches your foot.
Because I feel like that's how they, if you pay attention to how they call the catches, they want a submission that's locked in and you to have to defend that position, or
they kind of want you cranking on it, almost trying to finish it before they're going to call a catch.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to call catches for like flash subs. They call catches on like it is in and you are trying to kind of break something. That's the only time they call catches. And usually it's like even a second later where you've cranked for a second and then they call
if you think about it, it's a human brain. You're watching it.
Yeah,
It's the amount of time it takes for you to realize.
Is it in? Is it not in? Okay. I don't think it's a bad system.
No.
It's just for something like an Estema that is at the highest level is not going to be a quick tap unless you break their foot off. And nowadays people are real keen to them, especially in no-gi. When you need some more leverage, you need to put a hip on the foot, you need to put your foot over top. You're going to need a little bit more leverage. It's going to take a second. And you're going to usually with that Estema lock going to have to change your position a little bit. In that positional change, Mayssa every time is able to start doing something and defending and putting up her own offense off of that offense from Kelly.
Yeah, and I think that that confused some people because some people were kind of seeing that as more attacks that Danielle Kelly was doing. And then Danielle Kelly, she was controlling. She was keeping them she was keeping Mayssa in the corner where her people were or where her coaches were and like up into the corner. But Mayssa was doing a really good job of like inverting, trying to get under, trying to get over, trying to get around. And Mayssa really had more like aggressive movement. If that makes sense. Like she had a lot more as Danielle Kelly was trying to pass and control. Mayssa was spinning under, trying to go to the back, try to crab ride, try to go to this leg, try to go, and she was just constantly kind of going through. And there are two different kinds of movement, and depending on what your rule set is, puts more weight into one of them or the other. Your MMA rule set, like we talked about with ADXC, they would have given it to probably Danielle Kelly because she was on top. Yeah. Right? And she had the control up there. But
in an ADCC rule set, potentially is going to give it to Kelly because she's initiating. But in One Championship, it's like that's why we always talk about whenever I coach, whenever we do commentary, like we're very, very observant of like, hey, this bout here what are the rules that we're contesting in there, because like that will wildly change who wins a match and like how you approach a match, because you can have the exact same match, and if you have two different scoring criteria, like one guy wins because the scoring criteria is different. And so that's what happens here. I think it was very close. But I think if you value like a more positional game, you'd probably give this to Kelly. But I think Bastos, because she has, I think, bigger and better moments, especially with the sub. She has two really, really nice kind of backside heel hook entries from like a K-guard on Kelly that she defends, and she's working to defend. And Danielle Kelly has one really good locked out heel hook, but Bastos kind of very quickly kind of deals with that and like rolls through. The two that Bastos had on Kelly were, you had a knee down, you had a backside entry on something, and it was Kelly had to do a larger motion to escape and get out, and then immediately didn't have her own offense. Whereas the heel hook that Kelly had was like a flash sub, really good heel hook attempt that I think if you weren't a world-class athlete like Bastos, probably would have broken your leg. But again, look at the room that Bastos comes out of. She's at an AOJ, Unity, not gyms that are super well known for tapping a footlocks.
No, not at all.
So, has been in those rooms for a long time, and so knows very much how to deal with those. In the same way that Kelly knows how to deal with the backside entries that Mayssa brought, but she just had more entries that I think were a little deeper and they were more sustained. And so in the rule set, she takes it. So this is the first time that we have seen a title transition. I am curious, given that Danielle did have a couple of defenses for that One FC title, One Championship title, if they're going to give her an immediate rematch, if they're going to pull her back into the hopper. Like, we don't really know what they do, because the divisions, there's not really divisions in One Championship for the grapplers. They bring in great high level athletes, which is awesome, but they all are sort of one-off super fights for titles. They don't have a lot of undercard or main card grappling matches that aren't title matches. They did when they were building up the divisions to like, Kade's going to take this division, Ty's going to take this division, Mikey's going to take this division, Danielle's going to take this division. But there's not a whole lot of other roster people that are brought in for like longer term matches. I'm curious. Would love to see it again. It was very close. I think either woman changes their strategy. This absolutely could go, either way. Could go back to Danielle.
I don't think Mayssa really, this is Mayssa's game. Would you expect her to really do anything different?
No.
Not really.
No, but I think that that she does this again, she can absolutely win. I think Danielle Kelly changes her strategy slightly, she can win. Like, it was a close enough match where little changes in how I think Kelly approaches this can win this match for Kelly. I think, again, Kelly gets one more bite on another heel hook and then avoids Mayssa getting underneath her one time. I think the title stays with Kelly here. Like, that's sort of the closeness of this match. I just don't know if they're going to bring Danielle Kelly back to try to get the title back, or if they're going to give Mayssa a match or two, or we just don't really understand how One Championship runs these divisions. And there's a lot of kind of stuff behind the scenes and publicly that's happening with One where we just don't know what's going on right now. So again, I think it was a great match. I'm very happy to see Bastos with that title. I think she can put on some really exciting matches, kind of much like Danielle Kelly did in One Championship. And I can't wait to see what we see from Danielle Kelly coming up. Anything else on One FC?
Nope.
One Championship.
One Championship.
Let's talk about ADXC 5. This one was headlined by Uriah Faber and Bibiano Fernandez. Last time we said it was $5. It was $10 for the card. Worth it. It was good. It wasn't the most exciting card that ADXC has put on, but it was awesome to see Chad Mendez, the size that looks like he ate another Chad Mendez.
He did.
He looks so strong.
He looks super beefy.
So you're right. Let's talk about the main event real quick. For a couple of these matches, I don't have a ton to talk about. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Uriah Faber versus Glover Teixeira. Not Glover Teixeira.
No, Jeff Glover.
Yeah. Glover Teixeira. Where'd that come out?
That's like two completely different humans right there.
You put three Jeff Glovers together, you have Glover Teixeira.
Yeah, pretty much.
Uriah Faber defeated Bibiano Fernandez via decision. It was a really good forward pressure wrestling game plan from Uriah that wins it. Most of it was on the feet. It was Uriah very much knowing how to use the cage. Bibiano knew how to do it too. Uriah was a little bigger than Fernandez, but it was a little less mat work than I would have preferred. Bibiano Fernandez a couple of times pulling guard, looking for something, but Faber being very able to deal with that. yeah, I don't have much more on that, really.
No.
Would have loved to see it go to the mat a little more, but, you know, it did not. Next one, we have... Give me his name, Miranda.
I say this wrong.
I do too. That's why I threw it to you.
I say Rayron.
Rayron. It's an H. I know it's an H.
Rayhan?
Hayron.
Hayron.
It's Hayron.
Hayron.
That's what it is.
What it is.
Hayron Gracie defeats Marcos
Carazino.
We just watched this on pre-show,
I know.
too. Hits him with a Canto choke.
Yeah.
Which is a really uncommon choke to see unless you're Fabio Canto.
Yeah.
The Canto choke is a choke that I have had no success with ever.
It's the step over choke.
But it's from the guard. No, the step over choke is from the mount.
But isn't that a Canto choke?
I called that a step over. Like the mechanics are way different. Like a Canto choke, when you say a step over choke, for me, that is like I am in mount or in top side control. I have your lapel. I pulled it over. I use my leg stepping over as the leverage point to pull their head against the lapel and tap. The Canto choke, for me at least, when you say it, you're probably right, Miranda, but it implies that you're in the guard. Like you are on the bottom, and then you bring your same side hand in, and then you throw your leg over top of their head, and you pull in, and you get it's almost like a belly down inverted single arm X choke.
Yeah.
But you're using your leg as the other leverage point. It is one of those mechanically, I'll watch guys do it on like tutorials. It's something I'm trying to do for like 6 months now.
Yeah.
I'll watch guys do it on tutorials, and then I'll go to do it in the gym and be like, this just doesn't work out right. And then watching Hayron hit it, I was like, oh, that makes more sense now. I see how he ends it in the strangest position I have ever seen a Canto choke finished. He ends it with Marcos on his back and Hayron sitting almost in front of him.
Yeah.
It's a really, really weird Canto choke variation. It's a really weird finish for a choke that we already don't see hit with any degree of frequency. I think the last Canto choke we talked about was on like Fight to Win like a couple of years ago. It is a really uncommon choke.
But it's an old school jiu-jitsu thing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he was cornered by Renzo.
Yeah, well, that tracks.
You know.
And then Renzo got up there and talked, and you're like, Renzo, you're crazy. I love you. Hayron defeats Marcos with that choke. It was neat. If you find a highlight of it, you want to get it. It was, again, the whole card is $10. It was cool enough grapplers on it that it was fun. Next match, we had Chad Mendes defeating Diego Brando via decision.
Chad Mendes is
enormous, but not like in the bad way, but in like all you did since leaving the UFC and entering bare knuckle is just get jacked.
Yeah,
and he looks like.
And isn't he one of those like I only eat meat diet people too?
I don't know anything. I don't know much about Chad Mendes.
I think he's the one that
he hunts a lot.
Because I think he's the one that also has like psoriasis and like has decided to like limit his diet.
That's why he
got
like
meats.
He got popped from the UFC a couple years ago, and he was basically like, "This is the cream I got popped for. This is my legs when I don't use this cream."
Yeah.
And you looked at his legs, and you're like, "Oh."
I personally have psoriasis, so I understand. Like they put you on all kinds of crazy shit for it.
And he's like, "Yeah, man."
But I think I think he's the one that he like eats a very like protein heavy diet, like almost.
And that helps the psoriasis, doesn't it?
Like carnivore diet. He says it does. I don't know.
Hey, man.
You know?
What I take away from this match is I learned nothing about Chad Mendes other than that he is he
can wrestle.
He can wrestle on the cage really well, which if you watched him in his entire WEC, UFC run, you're like, yeah, I knew that about Chad Mendes. Go back and watch the Jose Aldo fights and be like, yeah, man, he wrestles on the cage really well. The untakedownable Jose Aldo, Chad Mendes is going to get you down.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was, that was really what this whole match was. It was Chad Mendes wrestling Diego Brando and taking him down occasionally or lifting him up occasionally and then turning him over and looking enormous doing it, which is great because I want guys to retire and be super comfortable and get jacked. So I would love to see more from Chad Mendes. I would love to see, again, any of those guys back on the card. It was fun. We also had anything more on Chad Mendes?
Nope.
Being strikingly jacked. That is the only takeaway I have, apparently. I'm realizing now in breaking the match down that it's the only takeaway I have is just like, holy shit, he got enormous.
Yeah.
I remember doing this too when we talked about bare knuckle in the outro one day. Just like, man, he is enormous.
Yeah.
Next, we have Pedro Romalo defeating Max Lindblad via decision. Max Lindblad is the guy that is going against Tynan on Polaris. That'll be a great match. This was fun. A lot of lapel work from both guys. Very close match.
Like lapel work.
Lapel, if you can't see, if you don't watch the video show on YouTube, you listen to the audio, it's me gesturing with my hands like I'm holding two sparklers like a child, like this, lapel work, like you're holding the gear, like lapel work. Both guys are phenomenal lapel players. Very close. I think it's a reasonable decision for Romano to get this. For me, this one was actually kind of hard because of the rounds, because you're kind of like basing, like, okay, did you win this round versus that round? Like, I would have honestly liked to see this one just as a straight single through without the rounds for ADXC, because I found it actually harder to follow because these guys are such heavy lapel players. They need a little bit more time to like work into their position. They were both being active, but that reset sometimes is just a little hard for this kind of game. Next match, we have Poya Romani defeating Hambre Abdelwahab.
Yes.
Poya Romani snaps Hamdi down, or like, I mean, he single leg dumps him down over, and then gets his back. He just immediately crushes his hooks in, and then he sits up and does the gladiator "Are you not entertained" pose on his back before he just punches down like a face crank over, and it was just like, that seemed a little bit aggressive. It was a match that you could tell very quickly that Poya Romani was going to win this match, because we've watched a bunch of Poya. We watched him on ADXC. We've seen him on Pit Submission. We've seen him on Aiga. Like, we're kind of becoming more familiar with Poya Romani's game. Big beach wrestler, MMA fighter.
He was wearing the beach wrestling shorts in the cage. He was. If
he can be a front runner on you, he's going to beat you. Like, he is a guy that very much deals really, really well with, like, being the bully, being in front, being imposing. And if he can do that, he's going to just crush you. If he can't, then we've seen him in some harder matches, but you could tell immediately when he kind of tied up with Hamdi, I was like, oh yeah, he knows where this match is going to go, and he is ready for that. And that was kind of exemplified by him throwing the hooks and doing "Are you not entertained?" and then like short choking him. We've learned really nothing about Poya's game. I would love to see Poya in more like ADCC trials and like kind of coming over more like the US circuit. I think he has a really interesting game for a lot of the heavyweights. I don't know how far he could take that, because we saw him in that weird match versus Kyle Duarte. We've seen him in like a weird match with Big Dan. But like, he's consistently grappling at a pretty high level. I'm kind of curious to see him. He looked really good at Aiga. I'm kind of curious to see what he looks like, against some more Brazil and US talent. He more stays over in the Middle East, but
well, Hamdi is Egyptian.
I would be curious. I want to kind of see more Poya. I'm curious to see where his game goes. Let's see. We also had Jonathan Gracie defeating Barak Saraman, a name I always mess up, versus unanimous decision. I was kind of curious. We last covered Barak versus Tynan Daupra on the Australian card, I think, and not the last Subversion, but the Subversion before. These guys were the main event, or one of them right behind Josh Saunders on one of those last Subversion cards. That's the last time we covered Barak. Very, very good Turkish-Australian grappler. Jonathan Gracie kind of dealt with the flying triangles that Barak put on him and really did a great job from top position, really for all 3 rounds, controlling him, dealing with sort of what Barak wanted to do, and just repeatedly controlling him from top position, and really seemingly like not out-strengthening Barak, but it seemed like he was a step ahead. And also,
he was definitely bigger. I mean, he looked bigger. He looked more muscular and carrying a lot more weight than Barak did.
Barak looked much more kind of lanky and like wiry. And Jonathan Gracie, who's doing 77 ADCC, looked more imposing. Was able to kind of leverage that. It looked a lot like Jonathan Gracie's match versus Jay Rodriguez. Like a similar, like, top pressure crush down game, gonna hold you in north south, gonna put you there, and like gonna prevent you from being able to throw up a lot of offense. We know Sarum has a ton of really great triangles, really great armbar game, but if you can stifle that, that's kind of what we've seen from Daupra. That's kind of what we're seeing from Gracie as he goes up against these really, really top level world class guys. they sort of decide to stifle his game, and that seems to be a repeatable way that guys like address that and sort of deal with the really great flash sub game that he has. Again, I'm curious to see. John Gracie looks really good. Curious to see what he looks like at 77 kilos. I think that's going to be a bit more of a cut for him because he looked 85 here every bit of it. So with like only a couple weeks left.
But it's day before weigh-ins, so.
Oh yes, day before weigh-ins, guys can get enormous. I love it. Let's see. We also had Ruan Alvarenga defeating AJ Agazarm via decision.
It was a very unanimous decision.
This kind of went how we previewed it last week. Really, I mean, I wanted a little more activity, but Ruan was really just able to control AJ. AJ was as much of a dog as we expected him to be, and just like Ruan could not put him away. I think we called that Ruan was going to put him away and was going to sub him, but like as I was thinking about this through the week, I was like, man, AJ is really, really hard to deal with, and he's really, really hard to finish. Ruan at one point was locked in. It was like trying to finish an arm triangle. You just saw Agar's arm just like, not going to let you have this arm. Just going to tech out, going to escape, going to get you all the way off me and stand back up. AJ is a really good wrestler, and so Ruan consistently had to like beat him with speed and pace, and he was able to do that.
And a good sprawl.
Yeah. A lot of times when Agazarm would like try to wrestle in on him. Really quick sprawl. It really just looked like Ruan was a bit quicker than Agazarm.
Yeah.
And that was the big defining thing. He was a bit quicker. Agazarm tends to wait more and more in his career as he gets a little older. You see him kind of like play the waiting game, the passing game, kind of waiting, setting traps, and then being able to capitalize on them. But Ruan just really never let Agazarm get going at all in this match. And later in the match sort of took more and more ground from Agazarm from top position, mounts him, and takes, again, a very clean unanimous decision through all 3 rounds. And that's anything else on. And I kind of didn't go through all of the matches. Anything else? Any other matches you want to run through?
Nope.
So that does it for this. That does it for this week for recaps.
Yes, it does.
Previews next week. We got ADCC.
We do.
It's coming. We got 66 kilograms, 77 kilograms, 88 kilograms, 99, under 99, over 99, women's 55, under 55, women's under 65, and then women's above 65. Plus the super fight, 2 Gordon super fights. I do not know this next week how much of that we will preview.
And CGI.
And CJ. Oh my God,
So we have to figure out what we should pick and
kind
choose.
of already done the CJI previews. If you want us to preview more of CJI, let us know. My plan for next week would be to preview ADCC is my thought. We're doing this live. We didn't actually talk about this on the pre-show. That would be my thought for next week.
Unless they come out with brackets for CGI.
If they come out with brackets, I will talk about brackets all day. I love talking about brackets.
Yeah, then that becomes a different... Just because that event technically starts before the other one, so they should have brackets.
Yeah, it starts Friday. But I think we'll probably get brackets Thursday, honestly.
Okay.
I would love to get brackets. Please give me brackets like 2 weeks out. I would love that. And for CGI, you kind of like...
CGI, we have no idea. We have no idea.
We know we're going to get ADCC brackets that Friday. Yeah. Because the bracket reveal is Friday. So we will be at CJI, and then brackets will be revealed for ADCC.
Or you'll be eating a small chicken.
Or I'll be eating a small chicken because Zach wants to go to Medieval Times. Because I want to watch Zach eat a Cornish hen with his hands. Yeah. And I've decided that like he really wants to do that in Vegas, and I'm like, I'll go watch that. I'll pay for dinner to watch Zach. The joy on his face to eat that at Medieval Times as a grown man.
Well, it's not Medieval Times. It's
whatever Excalibur's version of Medieval Times
it's their
Isn't that
tournament show. No, it's their
I thought it was Medieval Times, like a straight up Medieval Times.
It's a tournament show.
Oh, it's a different thing.
It's called like Tournament of Kings or something.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's a show. Has horses and stuff.
So does Medieval Times.
I know, but let me look. I forget what it's like called Tournament of Champions.
So I will be watching Zach eat. I'll be eating my own chicken while I watch Zach eat a chicken. Yeah. Or eat a Cornish hen or whatever.
Tournament of Kings.
Tournament of Kings. While the brackets for CJI come out.
It's a dinner show.
That'll be in 2 weeks. But next week will be ADCC. I am amped because my division of my people at under 66 kilos has been untouched by all the riffraff. I will get to enjoy it. The women's division, for the most part, have been untouched by the riffraff. And we only lost the big guys and the middle guys. So that division is now up for grabs.
I think the riffraff is awesome.
I know you do, Miranda, which is why I'm excited to preview ADCC, because these divisions went from being like, these are front runners, to being like 77, 88, 99. There's a lot of like...
Yeah, there's a lot of...
I don't know here.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that might happen. You never know.
If you have hot takes for who you think is going to win those divisions, send them our way.
Yeah.
At grappling_rewind on Instagram. I read all the DMs. If you think you know who's going to win, send it to me. I love it. Getting a picture and a circle. That is my favorite way to get hot takes. I love it. People have done it to me for years. I don't know why that is the universal way people send me fight picks, but I absolutely love it.
I would just send like the bracket.
They send the bracket and they just send a circle on the guy they pick, like this guy and like Diego, or like they give me like a reason after. But is for some reason I got like our buddy Jeff sent it to us this week, and that way for CJI he's like this guy and this guy, and they were the hottest of takes, and so I love hot take season. So that'll be that will be next week's show, is essentially like hot takes of like, here's where we think the bracket's going to go. And then we get the actual brackets and it's like, nothing like we look like.
No idea. We're completely wrong.
Yeah. We did fantasy brackets last year or 2 years ago. And that was fun. I did it with Josh.
Yeah.
So I may do that as well, but that took a long time to get all the brackets into Bracket Maker.
Yeah, that takes a long time.
I still have all of the posters downloaded from 2 years ago. It was 96 posters. Now with the women's division, extra women's division, it's going to be like 110. And I'm just like, oh, that's so many posters to download and then import into Bracket Maker. But it was a fun exercise. If you want that, again, shoot us a DM. Miranda, got anything going on this week?
No. I'm training.
Yep.
Try not to die. The normal stuff.
I am trying to get together all the podcast gear to see how much stuff I need to fit in the suitcase. But we're flying Southwest, so it is convenient because I get an extra suitcase.
Yeah, that's fun.
So that'll be like this camera and the recorder and the mics, and do we take these mics or other mics?
I have a bunch of shit that I have to get done for work before I even get to fly out to Vegas.
I just finished all of it.
That's my problem.
Today.
I wish.
I'm just doing my year-end training right now as at work, and I'm amped for it.
Let's be really happy about federal judges making your deadlines the day before you're supposed to leave for Vegas. Actually, the day I was supposed to leave for Vegas, which puts me back a day. Kind of annoying, but anyway.
Well, fun for you. I'm just doing training, so I'm having a great time.
Fun times.
You got anything else, Miranda?
No.
All right. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, joined by the co-host,
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Ground. So Matt, whatever it is, stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.